The darkness before dawn hung heavily over Ouagadougou, wrapping the city in a veil of silence, broken only by the sporadic glimmer of kerosene lamps, flickering in the poorer neighborhoods where most citizens of Burkina Faso lived. In his modest office, Captain Ibrahim Traoré had been awake long before the first signs of daylight. His eyes were strained from poring over a stack of official documents, each page tightening the knot in his stomach. The reports coming from the Ministry of Social Affairs painted a spotless image of aid, distribution funds reaching the needy, programs running efficiently, and vulnerable communities being supported. Yet, the reality Captain Ibrahim Traoré observed on the ground told a far darker story. At precisely 5:47 a.m., a phone call pierced the silence, its shrill tone cutting through the humid air. When he answered, the voice on the other end was disguised, clearly altered to avoid recognition. Yet, the caller's message was chillingly precise. "The Sankara estate," the voice whispered. "See for yourself where the children's money has gone." Captain Ibrahim Traoré's hands trembled slightly as he scribbled down the coordinates. The name attached to this betrayal was none other than Minister Sankara, the very man who just 3 months earlier had stood beside him vowing transparency and unwavering dedication to Burkina Faso's poorest. The same minister who had shed tears during a visit to a children's orphanage in the Sahel, where 37 orphans were crammed into 12 beds and surviving on a single daily meal. Now, as Captain Ibrahim Traoré's convoy wound through the quiet pre-dawn streets toward the wealthy outskirts of the city, the familiar sting of betrayal returned. He had witnessed such corruption before in Mali, in Guinea, in other parts of the region. Again and again, those tasked with safeguarding the innocent had instead preyed upon them. But still, something about Sankara had seemed different. His background as a schoolteacher, his modest upbringing, his heartfelt speeches about breaking cycles of poverty. Captain Ibrahim Traoré had believed in him. The crackle of the military radio disrupted his thoughts, delivering grim updates. 3 more orphanages had recently closed for lack of funding. The Ouagadougou Children's Hospital was rationing medicine. Rural teachers had gone and paid for months, leaving students to face hunger and empty classrooms. Meanwhile, millions in international aid were still pouring into Burkina Faso, with donors abroad confident their money was saving lives. As the convoy climbed toward the hills overlooking the capital, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's chief of security, Captain Ouedraogo, turned with a hardened expression. "Sir, property records are verified. The estate was purchased 8 months ago using a shell company, registered in the Seychelles. We traced the money. It connects directly to 3 different aid accounts." The words hit Captain Ibrahim Traoré like a hammer. 8 months ago was exactly when the so-called new distribution system, Sankara's prized reform, had been launched, supposedly designed to eliminate corruption and deliver aid directly to those in need. It was instead the perfect machine for organized theft. The first light of day stretched across the horizon, painting it in shades of orange and red. Through the haze, the silhouette of a massive estate appeared. The half-finished mansion loomed like an open wound, its marble pillars glistening under the rising sun. Construction machinery droned across the property, but what made Captain Ibrahim Traoré's blood run cold were the small figures scattered among the rubble. Children, some were as young as 10, dragging buckets of water and pushing heavy wheelbarrows under the stern eyes of overseers. "My God," Captain Ouedraogo muttered, his voice heavy with disbelief. "Those are children." Traoré's jaw tightened as he watched a boy barely 12 struggling to lift a bag of cement. His thin arms shook under the weight, his clothes hung in tatters, and his weary movements reflected exhaustion far beyond his years. These were not workers' children innocently lingering on a construction site. These were laborers forced to build, quite literally, the monument to their own suffering. The convoy stopped at the ornate iron gates. A nervous guard scrambled with his radio, clearly unprepared for the unexpected arrival of the president's convoy. Through the bars, the full scale of the opulence became visible. Wings of the mansion stretching outward, a circular driveway, and at the far end, the shimmering blue outline of a swimming pool under construction. As Captain Ibrahim Traoré stepped out of his vehicle, silence fell gradually over the site. The metallic clatter of tools ceased. The children froze, their wide eyes fixed on the man they knew from television, the leader who had promised them protection. From a temporary office building emerged Minister Sankara, his polished suit glaringly out of place amid the dust. his face drained of color the moment he recognized Captain Ibrahim Traoré, his hands betraying a nervous tremor. For a long moment, the two men locked eyes across the courtyard, the revolutionary leader, embodying justice, and the minister who had betrayed everything they had sworn to uphold. The radio crackled again in Ouedraogo's hands. Another orphanage, this time in Kaya, was on the verge of closing by the month's end. 43 more children would soon be abandoned to the streets. The timing was cruel. While the children here built a palace for greed, others elsewhere were losing their last refuge. With each step across the marble-inlaid courtyard, Traoré felt as though he was walking over the graves of broken promises. The children had stopped working entirely now, huddling together, their fear palpable. Sankara forced a weak smile as Traoré approached. His attempt at composure collapsed instantly under the steel gaze of the president. "Captain Traoré," he stammered, What a surprise. I was merely inspecting this investment project." "Investment?" Traoré's voice cut through the air like a blade. He gestured toward the half-completed mansion. "Tell me, Minister, how does a former schoolteacher earning 30,000 francs a month afford Italian marble?" As construction workers slowly slipped into the background, Traoré's attention lingered on the children. A young girl in a torn school uniform, caked with dust, tried to hide behind a cement mixer. The fact that she was here during school hours spoke volumes. Poverty had stolen her education and chained her to forced labor. Sankara's throat bobbed nervously. "Captain, it's all legitimate. A partnership with international investors. The paperwork is in perfect order." "International investors?" Traoré drew a folded document from his jacket. "You mean the Seychelles-based company that received €2.3 million in transfers from the European Union's Emergency Aid Fund, the same fund earmarked for orphans and medical supplies?" The minister's face turned ghostly pale. Behind him, Ouedraogo was already coordinating troops to secure the site and gather photographic evidence. Every detail screamed corruption, child labor during school hours, luxury imports worth more than entire villages earned, and stolen funds that had left children starving. Traoré's voice lowered to an icy whisper. "Tell me why children who should be in classrooms are mixing your concrete. They're helping their families earn extra income." "It's voluntary," Sankara mumbled. "Voluntary?" The word exploded from Traoré. He strode toward the nearest child, a frail boy balancing a water bucket. "What's your name, son?" "Idu," the boy whispered. "How long have you been working here?" "Since the rains ended, sir." 3 months. "And your school?" Tears welled in the boy's eyes. "Mama said we need money for food." "The school?" "It closed when the teacher left." Traoré's fists tightened. 3 months of this child's life, stolen. His education erased so marble floors could gleam in a minister's mansion. He turned sharply towards Sankara. "The teacher left because you stopped paying salaries. The funds for rural education were funneled into this project. These children are constructing your palace because you stole their futures." Ouedraogo approached with a tablet showing bank records. "Sir, further transfers confirmed. Medical funds, food assistance, education all siphoned into the same shell network." At that, Sankara collapsed to his knees on the very marble he had installed with stolen money. His voice cracked, desperate. "Please, Captain, you must understand. The pressures, the demands. I never meant for it to go this far. It began small, just a little to support my family. And then you realized how easy it was," Captain Ibrahim Traoré interrupted coldly, "to rob children who could not resist, to exploit the trust of international donors." The sound of engines at the gates signaled reinforcements, prosecutors and investigators, arriving alongside journalists, summoned to witness the truth. There would be no cover-up. The nation, and the world, deserved transparency. As the Attorney General's team began cataloging evidence, the bitter scale of betrayal unfolded. Plans for 23 rooms, a Moroccan-tiled swimming pool, and a wine cellar valued higher than the annual textbook budget of 3 provinces. All while orphanages closed and children went hungry. Dr. Fatima Ouedraogo, the Attorney General herself, arrived, her sharp gaze sweeping across the obscene display. "Minister Sankara," she declared firmly, "you are under arrest for embezzlement, child exploitation, and crimes against the state." Handcuffs clicked. The mighty minister was reduced to a trembling man in a dusty suit. Yet, the deeper wounds lay not in his downfall but in the children left broken. Their faces bore the weary wisdom of hardship. their small shoulders carrying burdens no child should bear. "Idu," Traoré called gently. The boy stepped forward hesitantly, barefoot on the cold marble. His hands bore calluses from months of labor, his thin frame revealing malnutrition. "How many of you are here?" 37, sir. "Mostly from our village. They promised our families good pay if we worked hard." The cruel arithmetic struck Traoré. 37 children, the same number of orphans, sleeping on bare floors at the Sahelian home. The suffering was interconnected, meticulously orchestrated by greed. Ouedraogo returned with an initial report. "Sir, over €4 million stolen. Enough to build schools, stock rural clinics, and feed tens of thousands." Journalists surged forward, cameras flashing. The story spread instantly across media networks CNN, BBC, France 24, igniting outrage across the globe. Donor nations demanded answers. Aid agencies scrambled to review their operations. Across West Africa, governments quietly launched internal audits. Facing the cameras, Traoré spoke firmly. "This is not just one man's corruption. It is the betrayal of principles. These children have been robbed twice, of the aid meant to sustain them, and of their childhood, forced to construct their own oppression." Investigators traced assets, froze accounts, and seized property. The mansion would be repurposed into a school and orphanage. Yet no material restitution could restore the lost childhoods, the deaths caused by medicine shortages, or the education sacrificed. Weeks later, the transformed estate opened as the Sankara Memorial School and Orphanage, not to glorify a disgraced minister, but to ensure his betrayal was never forgotten. 47 children found refuge within its walls. Amadou, once burdened with cement, now scribbled equations on marble walls, his hands stained only with ink. Salamata, the girl once hiding in rags, became a student teacher, guiding others with confidence. Sankara's trial ended with a 5-year sentence, his assets seized. The broadcast proceedings exposed a wider corruption network across ministries, recovering nearly €12 million more. Transparency International upgraded Burkina Faso's corruption rating for the first time in years. But for Traoré, true progress was measured not in statistics, but in children's laughter. Echoing through repurposed hallways, he sat cross-legged among students, listening to Amadou proudly present a science project on solar panels. "One day, we'll bring electricity to villages," the boy said. The irony struck him deeply. Once forced to build a monument to greed, this boy now dreamed of building light for his people. Outside, the swimming pool had become a garden, teaching sustainable farming. The luxury spa was transformed into workshops for carpentry and skills training. On the marble entrance wall, the children engraved words that would endure. "Never again," in memory of promises broken and trust betrayed. Reforms followed. Ouedraogo became Minister of Transparency, empowered with oversight across all ministries. Citizens participated directly in monthly town halls, voicing grievances and shaping solutions. A father stood during one such meeting, his voice heavy. "My daughter lost 2 years when her school closed. You brought it back, but those years are gone forever." Captain Ibrahim Traoré nodded gravely. "You were right. Money cannot replace what was stolen, but we can ensure it never happens again." As dusk fell over Ouagadougou, Captain Ibrahim Traoré's convoy carried him back through the glowing lights of the capital. The radio reported 3 newly opened schools, a rural clinic stocked with fresh medicine, and plans for a new orphanage designed by its future residents. The mansion that once embodied betrayal now echoed with children's laughter, a beacon of justice reclaimed. Captain Ibrahim Traoré reflected quietly. True justice was not merely punishing betrayal, but creating opportunity for those who had been betrayed. And now, the children of Burkina Faso carried voices that could never again be silenced. Welcome to African Lights, your home for truth, analysis, and the African voice. If you believe in this message, do not forget to like this video, share it with your community, and subscribe so we can continue spreading the truth. This is our moment. This is Africa's time. Let us rise together.